In Palestine, Israeli occupation forces kidnapped Palestinian activist Ahed Tamimi along with her father in the occupied West Bank. In Venezuela, authorities launched the electoral campaign for the consultative referendum in defense of the country's sovereignty over the Guyana Esequibo territory. And in China, Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Maro met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Israeli occupation forces kidnapped Palestinian activist Ahed Tamimi early Monday morning. The Israeli siege on the Gaza Strip has intensified disproportionately in the last few hours, reaching the point of kidnapping activists. According to Ahed Tamimi's defender, Dena Takruki, Israeli troops stormed her home in Navi Saleh, a village in the occupied West Bank, and after vandalizing the residence, took the young woman and her father away. Ahed Tamimi became a worldwide icon of Palestinian resistance when she was arrested for confronting Israeli troops who seized her home when she was just a child. In Palestine, Israeli warplanes killed about 45 people in the last few hours as part of Tel Aviv's 31-day siege of the Gaza Strip. According to local media, Israeli warplanes attacked two houses in Deir al-Bala and al-Sawaideh in central Gaza on Monday. Most of the victims are reported to be children. These bombings came as the search for survivors trapped under rubble caused by previous bombardments by Israeli forces was ongoing. According to data from the Ministry of Health, about 10,000 Palestinians have been killed so far since the beginning of the Israeli aggressions on October 7th. In Palestine, Israeli forces have killed at least 200 people in the last 24 hours in the relentless bombardments of Gaza. After 31 days of siege, the occupying army claimed to have divided Gaza in two as it continues its ground operations. According to the Tel Aviv army, its forces attacked 450 Hamas targets and reached the coastline, indicating that they divided the strip between the north and the south. The occupying army authorities affirmed that the Zionist forces maintain a greater control over the northern part. Meanwhile, Palestinian health authorities denounced that Israel attacked during Sunday night the only psychiatric hospital in the Gaza Strip, an ophthalmologic hospital, and a children's medical center. The Gaza Health Ministry reported that the Israeli shelling has killed to date 9,770 people, including over 4,000 children and 2,550 women. On Monday, the United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees registered 88 of its workers killed in the ongoing Israeli bombardments of Gaza, a figure never seen in the 75-year history of the organization. Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs Martin Griffiths, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and Executive Director of the United Nations Children's Fund Catherine Russell expressed profound rejection and pain for social loss in a month of Zionist onslaught against the Strip. They reiterated the urgency of ordering an immediate ceasefire, freeing the hostages and guaranteeing the lives of civilians and humanitarian workers. In Palestine, doctors denounced the seriousness of the injuries caused by the white phosphorus bombs dropped in Gaza. Kazan Abu Sita, a surgeon who worked for the NGO Doctors Without Borders, said that the burns of the victims who were in the missile blast radius are the product of white phosphorus. He explained that they are not thermal burns, but chemical burns, which have a different and more serious injury pattern. Abu Sita also referred to the situation of the hospitals in Gaza, reporting that 16 have been hit in the last few days, representing 40% of all those located in the Strip. And the Israeli occupation army proceeded to cut off all communications in the Gaza Strip. Communications were cut off and several areas of the city of Khan Yunis were bombed. As a result, several people were killed and others were injured. Our correspondent Huda Hegazi with more details.
Aproximadamente a las 6 de la tarde, hora local.
Yesterday, at approximately 6 p.m. local time in Gaza, the Israeli occupation army proceeded to cut off all communications in the Gaza Strip. We found ourselves without internet, without telephone lines, without coverage, without anything. We spent about 15 hours without being able to communicate with anyone, without anyone being able to communicate with us. We as our reporters could not do our work since we could not communicate with our media and we could not know what Israel was bombing in the various governments of the Gaza Strip. However, we found out after this unexpected and surprising telecommunication cut that the Israeli warplanes proceeded to bomb different areas of the Gaza Strip. The main objective was to bomb the area around the hospitals, especially the Al-Shifa Hospital, the Indonesian Hospital, the Al-Quds Hospital, and the Al-Qadsa Hospital in the governance of Deir al-Balah. These attacks resulted in casualties and serious injuries. In this court, it was an attempt for Israel to do and commit crimes against the population here in the Gaza Strip, without anyone knowing what they were committing. And not only the hospitals were heavily bombed, but also different areas, especially in the north and in the center of the city of Gaza. Different streets such as the Al-Zaytun, the Tel al-Hawa, and the Al-Shihai area were heavily bombed, and unfortunately several Gazitis lost their lives and many others were wounded. Telecommunications returned today at 9 a.m. local time in Gaza, and we discovered the great disaster that the army of the Israeli occupation has committed in this cut of communications. This is not the first time that the Zionist occupation army proceeds to cut the communications here in the Gaza Strip. Twice before, the communications have been cut, and each time they were cut, Israel proceeded to commit atrocious crimes against the population in the Gaza Strip, and this is because Israel wants to commit more violations without the world knowing about the atrocities it commits against the Gazati populations here in the Gaza Strip.
It's been 31 days since the beginning of the all-out Israeli siege against the Gaza Strip began. According to official figures, so far over 9,900 Palestinians have been killed, while more than 26,000 have been wounded.
Del creciente número de fallecidos,
number of dead and wounded, as well as the shortage of medical supplies and fuel, Palestinian health authorities warned about the risks of a humanitarian disaster in Gaza. In addition, officials said that some 16 hospitals and 32 primary care centers are no longer operational due to the Israeli attacks. The United Nations Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East warned that some 92 of the organization's 149 shelters in that country are in overcrowded conditions, or they have exceeded their capacity to accommodate more people. According to the United Nations Agency, the situation has become a risk for public health due to the lack of water and medical supplies in Gaza. Authorities denounced the use of white phosphorus in new attacks perpetrated by the Israeli forces against the Gaza Strip. According to reports, Israeli warplanes are heavily targeting the Shari refugee camp with airstrikes and chemical weapons, as well as other locations in the north and south of the Palestinian enclave. On Sunday, the president of Palestine, Mahmoud Abbas, held a meeting in Ramallah with the United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken, while Palestinian citizens demonstrated in rejection of the arrival of Blinken, whom they accused of being an accomplice of Israel in the attacks on Gaza. Meanwhile, the Israeli Minister of Patrimony, Amichai Eliyahu, called for dropping an atomic bomb on Gaza, statements that were rejected by Saudi Arabia, Syria, and member countries of the Arab League. Around the world, expressions of solidarity with the Palestinian people continue. In Europe, citizens of the United Kingdom took the street to reiterate their support to the Palestinian cause, while in Spain, demonstrators rejected the crimes committed by the Israeli occupation in that territory. Also in Greece, many people rejected the support of the national government to the violent actions of Israel against the Palestinians. While in Asia, social movements in Turkey demonstrated in front of the Incirlik Air Base in the south of the country, where a U.S. military mission is located, to oppose Washington's support to Israel, while in Indonesia, citizens also took to the streets to demonstrate for the freedom of Palestine. Meanwhile, in Oceania, citizens in Australia joined the voices in support of the people of Palestine and in rejection of the Israeli attacks against the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, in America, thousands of Canadians raised their voices to condemn the international community's inaction in the face of the genocide perpetrated by Israel against the Palestinian people.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. All the stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the South. As of this Monday, the Venezuelan people mobilized and start a permanent debate within the framework of the electoral campaign that begins for the consultative referendum in defense of the Guyana Esequibo territory. The campaign, which was called by the National Electoral Council, is scheduled to end on December 1st in preparation for the voting of the referendum on Sunday, December 3rd. President Nicolas Maduro explained that it will serve to raise the awareness, organization, and participation of the Venezuelan people. The head of state instructed the leaders of the campaign command to distribute flyers, to travel around the country, and to call the people to the great cause of the homeland, which involves the defense of the historical rights of Venezuela over the Esequibo. On Monday, Cuban Prime Minister Manuel Maro met with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The premier has been touring the Asian nation since November 2nd, his first since he was appointed Prime Minister. In Shanghai, where he made his first stop, he held a meeting with his counterpart Li Qian, where he highlighted the solid ties of friendship between the two countries. Li called for increased cooperation in different fields, emphasizing new energies and biomedicine. The Cuban leader also held a meeting with the head of the National People's Assembly, Sao Leji, stressing the importance of the relations between the legislative body. The government of Panama announced on Sunday that classes will start this week. However, the teachers' unions ratified that they will continue on strike. The crisis in the education sector began last October 23rd, when teachers announced gradual strikes due to the approval in the National Assembly of a concession law between the state and a Canadian mining company that grants foreigners full rights over the largest mine in Central America. For security reasons, the Ministry of Education suspended lessons and on Sunday has made a call for a return to the classroom, which teachers do not intend to comply with, as they claim that the situation has even worsened. In Honduras, authorities maintain the yellow alert throughout the national territory due to the heavy rains that have been affecting the country for a week. According to the Secretariat of Risk Management and Contingencies, the yellow alert is in effect in at least 5 departments, while 8 others are under green alert or surveillance. These are due to the saturation of soils due to heavy rains caused by a cold front and a low-pressure system, which cause rivers to swell and floodings. According to relief agencies, Civil Protection is working to attend to all those affected by the rains that have left at least 4 dead. Authorities in the Indian capital, New Delhi, announced Monday that they will restrict private vehicle traffic to give a respite to the city shocked by a mixture of pollution and smoke. Over 30 million people are currently affected by the ongoing situation. Pollution measuring companies certified that New Delhi is once again the most polluted city in the world. In this sense, the local government declared on Sunday that schools will remain closed for another week. Every autumn, the Indian capital experiences almost unbreathable air when smoke from nearby rural areas arrive. Experts have indicated that high levels of pollution in India are responsible for hundreds of thousands of premature deaths each year. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, sub-stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In Italy, a fishing boat arrived off the coast of the island of Lampedusa carrying more than 500 migrants. The boat, located by the Coast Guard, was carrying a total of 531 migrants, mostly from Syria, Egypt, Pakistan and Bangladesh. They declared that they had to pay between $4,000 and $7,000 to make the trip, which set sail from Souara in Libya. With this, there are now 4 fishing boats with migrants arriving in Italy in the last 2 weeks. Approximately 2,000 migrants have died between January and September 2023, crossing the Mediterranean Sea, according to the International Organization for Migration. In Germany, authorities closed the airport in the northern city of Hamburg to passengers, and flights were cancelled Saturday night. The move came after a vehicle broke through security and entered the premises. Federal police said an armed man fired twice into the air with a weapon. Police also said that the man's wife had previously contacted them about a possible child abduction. Authorities later added that the 35-year-old man had a 40-year-old child inside the car and that they assumed he was the father and had taken the child by force from the mother in a possible custody battle. There was no indication or people could be harmed since all passengers had evacuated the airport. The Southern African Development Community announced a strategic deployment of peacekeeping mission to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The president of the regional bloc, Joao Lourenço, explained that the organization will lead the mobilization of resources to facilitate peace and security in the region. This decision is due to the social instability suffered by the Congolese people as a result of the actions of irregular groups that threaten the population. On Sunday, the Pan American Games Santiago 2023 ended with BMX Freestyle as the featured sport at the Urban Park Center of the National Stadium. Our correspondent Wander Ragonesi was covering all the details of the last day of competition.
With the sun shining on top, this Sunday was the last day of action at the Pan American Games Santiago 2023. BMX Freestyle was the event in charge of closing the games since early in the morning until way past noon. This discipline was introduced in Lima 2019 and has a lot of fans that gather to watch Sunday games, where each country was eager to secure another medal for their team. One of them was Ana Gabriela Zacarias, who, despite being one of the eldest competitors and was facing rivals that are half her age, valued the camaraderie that this sport provokes.
Our sport before the Olympics and others was always like a community, a very interesting brotherhood. We are always supporting each other. In fact, during the practices with the girl, we were supporting each other. You can get the triumph, come on, you can do it.
At the end, Hannah Roberts from the US won the gold on the women's side, while Jose Augusto Torres from Argentina got first place on the men's side. And just like that, the action at the National Stadium was done, giving way to the closing event at the Bicentenario Stadium in La Florida, where several artists sang in front of athletes and authorities. There were 19 days of intense activities, where the US dominated the table, while Chile and Colombia had very good performances, and left the host country satisfied with a job well done. For Deportes TeleSUR, Bastián Merino and Eduardo Regonesi.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. Before saying goodbye, we want to thank our Caribbean audience, especially the audience of Trinidad and Tobago. We are pleased to share our newscast and contribute to provide an alternative news source of the latest world events. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.